there's this thing that we present in our workshops in regards to like the social barometer, and we like to present it as the ally spectrum, where in regards to different issues, it's not one's whole being, but like literal different issues, someone can range from being an active ally to a passive ally to a neutral to a passive opponent to an active opponent. And when we say opponent, we don't mean terminology that's labeling someone as a bad person, but rather an opponent to the what would be socially just for a situation, right? Having opposing mindsets or actions that thus compromise someone's justice. And so the way that we always like to encourage people is saying, look, if you look at like this, if you see the world as like this is the scale of social justice, and you've got allies on this end and opponents on this end and a whole bunch of people in the middle that make up neutrals to passive to passive ally to passive opponent, there's a lot of this middle area that we can engage and focus on moving over just a little bit to be on the side towards doing this work, right? This mobilizing. And what I would say is that with people who are neutral, right, that can look like fence sitters, or that can look like I'm out of this, like it doesn't apply to me. So the big thing is, how do we engage through empathy, engage through like what our values should be about what human life should be like, and let that be a basis for inspiring someone to see that you can't be neutral, you got to be on the side of justice. But then that also, there are so many passive allies. My big thing is, do you know how many passive allies are out there that believe in injustice and the right thing, but active allies have shamed them so much into a corner that they feel like they can't do anything right, or they're so overwhelmed feeling like they can't do anything that thus they don't do anything at all. So our big standpoint is, what does it look like to hold people accountable to knowing truth and knowing that there's responsibility there, but how do we play a role in empowering and encouraging people to join us in the movement? And so I'm always a believer that mobilization is key, because if you have more people on the side of justice, the scale leans that way, period. That's why every heart and mind matters, but how we engage matters. And the last thing I'll add to that, though, is that I think people will often sort of put a blanket statement then on what engagement should look like. But our standpoint is that in your privilege is where you have a responsibility to engage in a certain way, right? To engage in a manner that is empathetic and trying to understand someone and bring them over. And that what has often happened is that in our privilege, we've expected that same responsibility of the marginalized, right? Like people are expected to show extra grace and extra patience against the inhumanity that's coming towards them, not show any anger or hurt or anything. And our standpoint is that actually, as a straight person, as a cisgendered person, if someone's being homophobic or transphobic, I can be upset that they're doing that, but I'm not personally harmed by that, right? And so I also have an opportunity to engage that same straight cisgendered person in a way that's truly trying to understand them and reach them through empathy that takes a certain posture, not a fight, that ultimately helps us achieve moving them over to be on our side of justice and mobilization. And that looks different from the trans person, from the gay person, and the responsibility that they have to focus on moving that person over. And so that's a big thing that we also say in regards to mobilizing, is where do we have responsibilities for a certain type of posture that's going to get people who fall in those same categories of privilege as us to be inspired, encouraged, empathized to join us in the mobilization.